right, welcome back to ABA exam review and the continuation of our RBT practice question series, where we're going through another set of questions together and breaking them down. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please like and subscribe. Check out btexamreview.com for all of our study materials, including our combo pack. When you pass your exam, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. Let's get going. A chef is training a new cook to make a sauce that requires stirring constantly for 15 minutes. The chef provides instructions and models the stirring, then sets a timer for the cook. The chef is primarily measuring the cook's ability to maintain the stirring for a required duration. What is the chef measuring? All right, so let's start with the measurement question. Now, this is a good example of what happens when you're reading too quickly. I stumbled a couple times over the wording in the question. Now, what many people will do is, despite that, they'll jump straight to the answer choices. But we're not going to do that. We're going to attack the question and then get to the answer choices, so we really understand what we've read. So we're looking at what the chef is measuring. The chef is training a new cook to try to make a new sauce that requires stirring constantly for 15 minutes. The chef gives instructions, models, then sets the timer. The chef is measuring the cook's ability to maintain the stirring for the required duration. Now, once we attack that question, it gives us the answer. So don't overthink it. The chef needs the cook to stir for 15 minutes. They set a timer, and they're measuring the cook's ability to stir for 15 minutes. Very easy question to rush through or overthink. But if we slow down and attack, you can't miss this question. It's going to be duration. If we think about latency and inter-response time, we're measuring time in between. So if we have our SD, we have a response, and then a second response. Latency is here, time from the SD to the response. Inter-response time is time in between responses, and duration is total time of responses. The chef is measuring the stirring response. So what is the chef measuring? Duration. A grocery store manager wants to encourage customers to use reusable bags. They implement a system where customers who bring their own bag are automatically entered into a weekly drawing for a $25 gift card. Drawings occur every Sunday, and multiple entries increase a customer's chances. If the drawing is the reinforcer, what type of schedule is this? We have a reinforcement schedule question. And the important part about the question and what the question is asking is that the drawing is the reinforcer. So we know we have the target behavior is use reusable bags. So the manager tells customers, bring a bag, you're entered in a drawing for a $25 gift card. You can enter multiple times, but the drawing only occurs every Sunday. Now, if we have a time-based reinforcement schedule, which we do here, because the drawing is the reinforcer and it happens every Sunday after a certain amount of time, then is that going to be a ratio or an interval schedule? Well, it's going to be an interval schedule. A ratio schedule has to do with responses. It doesn't matter necessarily about how many responses you engage in. The drawing is only going to happen every Sunday. So you've still got to wait a certain amount of time for the drawing to happen. Now, ask yourself, is it fixed or variable? Meaning, does the time the reinforcer is presented change, or is it the same? Well, it's every single Sunday. That's not changing. So it's going to be fixed. So we've got a fixed amount of time where the drawing occurs. That's going to make this a fixed interval schedule. Again, a ratio schedule is based on responses. It doesn't matter how many times you respond. You still have to wait till Sunday. And then the interval schedule is going to be fixed and not variable because it's not changing. A RBT is conducting a session where the client is learning to identify different colored blocks. The RBT places a red block and a blue block on the table and says touch red. The client touches the red block. The RBT then says touch blue, and the client touches the blue block. This type of teaching is primarily focused on what? So we're looking at a type of teaching where the RBT has a red block and a blue block, and the RBT says touch red, and when you touch red, right, you get reinforcement. When you touch blue, the client gets reinforcement. And in this case, the client is successfully touching the red block and the blue block. So what is the RBT trying to accomplish? Well, they're trying to accomplish teaching discrimination between stimuli. We want the client to be able to tell the difference between blue and red. And how do we get the client to tell the difference between blue and red? Is we teach them what blue and red is. So when you point at red and you successfully identify red, you're going to get reinforcement. If I say point at blue and you point at blue, you're going to get reinforcement. So this is discrimination training. It's not generalization, because the RBT isn't teaching this skill outside of a learning environment, or the skill is not occurring outside of the teaching environment. It's all happening in this one environment. So this is discrimination training. And then shaping would require some sort of approximations being taught, which is not occurring. So this type of teaching primarily focused on A, discrimination. A young client has never said cracker clearly, but wants a cracker during snack time. The RBT starts by reinforcing the client when they say ka. After a few days, the RBT no longer reinforces ka, but only cra. When cra is consistent, the RBT waits until the client says cracker before delivering the snack. What teaching strategy does this process best describe? Luckily, we just went over a question where we thought about shaping. And one of the advantages on your exam of going through every answer choice and processing why the wrong runs are wrong is it can help you later on in the test. In the previous question, we discussed how approximations are related to shaping. Well, what do we have here? We have a client who we want to teach to say cracker, and we have approximations. We have approximation 1, we have approximation 2, we have approximation 3. Each approximation is reinforced until they're successful, and then we move and move and move until we get to the terminal behavior. So when we're using approximations to reach a terminal behavior, what are we describing? Well, we're not describing discrimination because we just talked about the red and blue example. What we're looking at is shaping. We're not prompt fading because there is no prompting occurring here as far as we're concerned. And we're not chaining. We're not chaining a bunch of skills together or responses together. We're teaching a singular response using approximations. So again, one advantage of that last question where we broke down each answer choice is we're already starting to process what is discrimination, what is shaping, what is generalization. So when you get later in the test and you get an actual shaping question, you've already thought about shaping a few times and it becomes that much easier. Luca is behind on filling out data sheets for a client's target behaviors. Luca considers filling in estimated numbers based on memory. What should Luca do in this situation? So we've got a ethical practice type question. If you are Luca and you have fallen behind on filling out data sheets, which you should never do, obviously data should be ongoing, but let's say it happens. Luca then says, or you say, I'm going to fill in estimated numbers based on memory. Now, no matter how good you think your memory is, it's probably not good enough. A lot happens in a session. A lot of things happen between sessions. What should Luca do, given he's missed data for a client? A, fill in data based on past sessions to stay caught up. That's going to be actually worse because there's a good chance the data is just going to be wrong. Wrong data is way worse than no data, if we think about it, because wrong data can lead us to make poor decisions. No data we're just going to not use. B, make up new goals to cover the missing data. Well, absolutely not, right? That is not the RBT's job to create new goals, especially to cover up a mistake. C, delete the session note to hide the gap. Can't do that either. We've got to be honest. We've got to own up to the mistake. Mistakes happen. You're going to make mistakes in your career. You've got to be honest. You've got to just own the mistake. So what Luca should do, or if you're in the situation, leave the data blank if unsure, notify the supervisor. Let your supervisor know what happened. They'll guide you on next steps, but we never just estimate or guess on data. Our data needs to be as accurate as possible and in the moment as possible. Thanks for watching. Check out btexamreview.com for all of our study materials. When you pass your exam, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. See you soon.